So, like, scientifically speaking, dogs don't exist. Like
Yeah.
we made them. They're not natural. We literally made them. And I think all of us should step up a little bit and try and help the situation that we created. Like,
But welcome back to the Man McCann podcast. I'm super excited to be joined today by Rob Walshe, the Irish Dogfather. Welcome to the podcast, Rob.
thank you for having me, dude. It's a pleasure.
Man, it's a pleasure to get you here. And as I was saying beforehand, like probably the most hotly anticipated podcast. Brian Lincoln, the producer, said he's even going to listen to this one. He's very excited about it. So, like, people are buzzing, man. Why don't you tell us a bit about like how you got started in the dog game? You know, what attracted you into it?
So I've always been completely obsessed with all animals, not just dogs. And I was like, we had one dog when we had two dogs when we were kids. The first one was called Duke. He was a little Yorkshire Terrier, and he passed away, I think, when I was like 3 or something like that. And then we had our second dog when I was about 9, but we couldn't keep her because she was a collie and used to just jump all the gardens and go exploring. So we didn't get to keep her. But the most important dog of my childhood was probably my cousin's dog, Paddy. He had a Labrador called Pepsi, and my childhood was pretty much always in their house with Pepsi. It was kind of Little Rascals kind of style. My cousin and my brother running around getting up to all sorts of mischief all over Ranelagh with Pepsi. But I really though the dog that really kind of changed my life was the first dog that I got myself when I finished college. And he was a Rottweiler I adopted called Bruce. Bruce was a cheeky boy, and he was really obedient with me, but not so obedient with my mum and with my brother. My brother in particular, he would kind of like he would play with my mum and listen to her, but he did not respect my little brother at all. And yeah. There was a case where Simon, I'd say Bruce was about 5 months old, and like a puppy, but a Rottweiler puppy, so a big boy,
Hefty.
Yeah, a powerful machine of a dog, like. And when I used to get to a certain point on the green, I'd let him off, and it was like our fun and games kind of point. And anyway, Simon got to that point with the dog and didn't let him off the lead, and Bruce then decided that he'd play a new game called Rip the Trousers Off. So my poor brother had to deal with that and came home. We had a serious family discussion that evening, and I was told in very plain English that you have a finite time to get a handle on this dog or he's going back. So I think that night I enrolled myself in dog training college, and I think because me and Bruce had such a strong bond, like it really I've said it before, like I found my calling through Bruce, like and through our relationship, like it opened this world of dog training and dogs to me, and now fast forward to 12 years, I'm a very, very busy guy.
That's sick, man. It sounds like a labour of love, really. Like, you could imagine some people in that situation, just saying, "Oh, we'll get rid of the dog," but instead you're like, "No, I'm going to become a dog trainer. I'm going to sort this out."
No.
Like,
I would have become homeless quicker, like, than give them back. If it came down to it, I would have just left with them. Like.
Yeah, I had a Rottweiler for a while as well, actually, that I minded. And there's some beasts, like, he'd go under the table, and then if he stood up, he'd flip the table.
Take the table with
like
they're absolutely
an entire
machines.
kitchen.
And as well,
like,
they get such a bad rap, like, and
yeah,
honestly, like they're just they're no different than any dog. Like like
Mm.
they're I don't know. I think you need to meet enough of them to get that stigma away. Like, and
Mm.
they really are they're such intelligent dogs, and
Mm.
there is a humanness in their eyes that like maybe a collie and a German Shepherd have them sometimes as well. But I don't know. There's just something about them, and as well, like when Bruce passed away a couple of years ago, when he died, we lived in Sandyford, beside one of the Lewis stops up there, and there'd be a bit of commotion, most nights, like Friday night at kind of last Lewis 12:30 or something like that,
Yep. Yep.
and when Bruce died, it was the first time since I'd gotten him, and he died, I think, when he was 7 or 8. I think he would have been 7. And it was the first time in those 7 years that I had to actually think of like, whoa, what happens if someone breaks into my house? Like, like
Yeah.
he was like
Fuck.
having a big, strong dog with a guard sense like that is
Mm.
essentially like having a double barrel shotgun just pointed at your door. Like for the whole
Yeah.
time Bruce was alive, I felt
Mm.
so safe. And I'll give you a funny story actually. Years ago,
Yeah.
in my mum's house when I was still living back at home, I came home from a night out, maybe like I don't know, half 1, 2 a.m. I noticed that the bottom handle on the door was completely loose, and I was like, "That's kind of strange." Didn't think anything of it. Went upstairs. Two dogs were there. Give them a pet. Get into bed. I go downstairs the next morning, and I see that the door is actually not in the right place. And I go back and look at it, and somebody had crowbarred the door open and broken into the house.
Fuck.
And I slept in the attic. So Bruce would have been in the attic or on the attic stairs waiting for me. So some burglar walked up the stairs and would have met my Rottweiler and my mum's Mastiff. My mum at the time had a dog de Bordeaux, which is possibly even
Mm.
scarier than a Rottweiler. and
Shit, man.
and I'd say the person nearly dropped dead of a heart attack seeing that in front of them. But yeah, the obviously he managed to get out of the house because we didn't find a body. But
Man, I'd say you
I
headed out
would
fairly
pay
quick.
I'd say, man, I would pay so much money to see what happened. Like, but
Fuck, man. Yeah.
yeah, like having a big dog, like the peace of mind. Like I sleep like a baby at night, knowing that this
Mm.
dog's in protecting me. Like, and
Yeah, I mean that's one
I
of the
think
kind of the peace of mind of it. And what do you find nowadays? Something I'm kind of obsessed with is like modern people and dogs, and like our relationship with dogs, and like the
yeah,
kind of anthropomorphizing that goes on. Like for some
ah,
people, dogs are like
yeah,
babies, and they have them in
yeah,
prams.
yeah,
Other times they're
yeah,
guard dogs, but the this kind of weird phenomena of like dogs becoming people in a sense. Is
yeah.
that
It's
something you
strange.
see?
I mean,
Yeah.
oh, all the time, man. I have clients that have wardrobes. Like the dogs literally would have a different outfit for every day of the week, nearly like, or a hundred different bandanas, like depending on the weather and the occasion. A Christmas bandana, a Paddy's Day bandana, like, and I mean, part of me thinks it's stupid, but the other part of me thinks like, what the hell, like. What I don't like is people actually carrying around young puppies and you know giving the puppies a complex. Um,
Hmm.
you see that an awful lot with Chihuahuas, and Chihuahuas as a whole are quite difficult breeds. Or they're
Hmm.
quite a difficult breed. They're very, very barky, and they're known as being a bit, yippy and nippy and just kind of quick to temper,
Hmm.
sort of. And
Truculent.
yeah, and when people baby a breed that already has a kind of a predisposition to display those certain behaviors, all it does is amplify them. So a lot of the time what you're actually doing is you're taking the dog's ability to display their behavior and display what they're feeling and their emotions. So a lot of the time you're actually doing, you might think that you're mothering your dog or kind of spoiling him, but what actually you're doing is making him really stressed and wound up, because he can't say to this other dog, I don't want to be your friend, or, I'm not interested. Like, and if you have clothes on them, that's another layer. So like dogs will express their intent through their shape, a high tail, a low tail, back ears, low head. And if you put your Chihuahua, for example, in a onesie, he can't display his behavior properly. So, I don't like, my issue with that. I've no problem with that when the dog is socialized and old enough. But a lot of the time people do it with puppies, and that actually causes a lot of behavioral issues.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because that's kind of what I would have guessed. Almost like, if you're kind of interrupting a developmental process a little bit, like they need to kind of figure things out to a certain extent.
Yeah, well, it's literally it's there. Aside from barking, like, it's communication, like, and dogs can communicate
I never thought
at
of that.
a distance. I'm up for it, or I'm really not up for it. And most well-rounded socialized dogs will take those social cues, because that's what they really are, social cues, and either just part ways, or they'll run off and have a friendship, or they'll have a fight, like, and you're really restricting all communication fronts if it's wearing a onesie. You know what I mean? Not to say that it's not cute, because it is cute, but that's the problem. The problem is that we find fucked up shit cute. Like,
yeah, man, we really you can get a bit pathological with the cuteness thing when they're have to be communicating with each other.
Breeds that are just destroyed because we like round little squishy things.
And we've just bred them into the most obscure shape that doesn't really suit them. But that's kind of, I suppose that's a little bit what I'm thinking of here, which is like the human influence on dogs, and like how that goes right and how that goes wrong. Like, in terms of domesticating dogs, like, do you think it's
I think in the last 100 years it hasn't been right at all. I think there's maybe, off the top of my head, there's like 2 or 3 breeds that I can think about that we've done well with, and not, it's not even breeds. It would be literally individual breeders who have made it their mission to save a breed that has been destroyed. There's a brilliant documentary I think all your listeners should check out. I think it's made by the BBC. It's called Pedigree Dogs Exposed, and it goes into deep details about how messed up we have made dogs since the dawn of dog shows and breeding. So back in the day, like, I'm talking like 200, 300, 400 years ago, historically we would have bred dogs to be good at a task. Every single dog had a purpose. It was either a purpose or a pet. And even the pets had purposes. For example, Shitzus. Shitzus were the royal foot warmers for the Chinese royalty. That was their purpose.
No
their purpose
way.
was to get into the royal chamber, into the duvet, and warm up the bottom of the bed, so that then the nobility would come in and put their feet on the dogs, so that they wouldn't have cold feet in their bed. And like that's how obscure it gets. Like, for example, pugs.
That is obscure.
The Chinese were they did crazy dog breeding. So like, one of my favorite breeds, I would never own one. I wouldn't even pet one. The history of the Tibetan Mastiff is one of the most interesting things. It's an ancient breed. Like, it goes back thousands and thousands of years. Same with the Chow Chow. The Chow Chow, which everyone would actually know as the Chinese lion, that stands on the
with
globe.
The black
That's
tongue
actually,
and big arms.
The Chow Chows are Chinese lions, so to speak. and
Mhm.
they have massive significance in China in kind of mythology almost as well. But the
Mhm.
funniest Chinese dog story I think has to be the pug, because there's
Mm.
so many funny things about the pugs that nobody has a clue about. So the reason pugs are wrinkly, right? You won't believe this. The reason pugs are wrinkly is because ancient pugs in China, uh, the wrinkles spelled out the word prince on their forehead. The
What?
wrinkles it spelled out prince, the Chinese word for prince, on their
Yeah.
forehead. Um, Secondly, uh, the only reason pugs are in existence in Europe is because the English stormed the royal city, and I think they took 16 pugs. And pugs in China at the time had more rights than peasants. They were only allowed to be owned by nobility. If a servant or a peasant was seen to be disrespectful or to hurt a pug, they would be executed. They honestly had more rights than people in in ancient China, which I find
Fuck.
insane. And
Mm.
so anyway, the English steal the 16 pugs from the siege of this, the ancient city, and
Mhm.
they then they then bring them back to court, and everyone loses their shit in Europe about these, little hilarious dogs and their temperament. And so it then became a social thing in the noble circles and the kind of society, or the upper society of European monarchs. And one was gifted to the original William of Orange, who isn't a very liked man in Ireland for obvious reasons.
Yeah,
And
especially
I
not in
think it's
Belfast.
hilarious. There's a really funny story about he. So basically, at the time, he was warring. The Dutch were warring with Spain, and Spain had sent two Spanish assassins to kill him. And they were camped out somewhere in Europe. I can't remember where it was exactly, but there's two Spanish assassins sneak into his tent and get past his guards, and they're literally like standing over him with a big dagger. And his pug wakes up and wakes up the guards then, who run in and siege, or take them. So the House of Orange, the Dutch royal family, always own pugs because one saved the head of the household, or the historic
What?
man William of Orange. Yeah. Um. So that's my Chinese dog goss for you,
That is absolutely bizarre, man. He's probably like, I
isn't it?
mean, Belfast. I mean, I'm surprised more people don't have pugs in the
Yeah, I know. I
he's
know. They're the
he's
true dog of the House of Orange, like.
that's impressive, man. But yeah, I guess it's like that kind of history of dogs, but then taking them out of that context, obviously that they were evolved in, and taking them into now modern times. I mean,
Yeah.
can dogs like do they live on? Is it okay for dogs to be living in isolation in people's houses? I know you talk about them being pack animals. I mean,
Yeah.
what
See,
do you
my
think
my
that's
my
good for
my own.
dogs?
I think the problem with a question like this is that, like, it's like
Hmm.
people, like, you're gonna want to do different on Friday and Saturday. You're gonna want to do different things than I want to do, like. So every dog is different, and some dogs will thrive with never playing with another dog, and it's like people. Some people aren't social. They're not outgoing. Like, they like reading and quiet, and dogs can be the exact same. You'll find across the board though, like, most dogs would prefer to play with another dog, like, and there's certain like Chihuahuas and Jack Russells are kind of known for being a bit independent, and Huskies as well. Huskies can be a bit kind of standoffish, almost a little bit cat-like, kind of in terms of
Hmm.
their independence. But yeah, in terms of isolation, I don't think any animal, I don't think any human should be in isolation either. Like, I think I
Of
think I think
course.
when you go into isolation, I think bad, bad, to say, not to say they will be like dangerous behaviors or anything like that, but like, I think bad habits would kind of come to fruition
Mm.
through isolation with the dog. I don't think any dog should be isolated. No, but
Yeah, and do you think
if
it's something you should
they
observe?
weren't
Mm.
socialized, then if they weren't socialized, maybe you can't. It might have to be in isolation because it doesn't know the language, the dog language, and it might, you know, some dogs have a short fuse and they might bite, and if there's a case that they will bite another dog, then it's too high risk to socialize them. So
Hmm.
it's kind
Hmm.
of, there's no across the board kind of way to paint it really.
Yeah, there's no straightforward. And is that something people should consider when they're getting a dog, or like with their dog, that different
Yeah,
dogs have
man.
different needs? Like you should
Yeah,
know the
this is
type of
this is
breed
this
that
is
suits your
this
what
is
you're
the
doing.
thing that I waste so much energy on because
Really?
it happened, and man, this week I'm not naming names.
Mm.
If these people listen to the podcast, I'm sorry, but like, there's two dogs in the last 2 weeks. All the people would have had to do is look up the energy requirements of the breed, and they would have been like, "We can't get this dog." And the problem
Yeah.
is that people see a puppy in a park and they fall in love and they have this romantic idea about what their life is going to be like when they get this puppy, and they don't do the research. And like, literally, one Google, you find a Staffy, a Hungarian Vizsla, you know, any kind of, like, like active working style dog. You'd look like a German Shepherd, for example. A German Shepherd puppy, like, it will wear you out. Like, you know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
not for the faint of heart. Like, same with any working German breed is going to require, even a Labrador. People get Labs and they think they'll be a walk in the park. Like, Labs can go for 2-3 hours easy. Like, and
Mm.
a lot of the time the people just don't work out. And it's as simple as, how much time do I have to exercise this dog? And it's the easiest analogy. And people need to be honest with themselves about every day, because it doesn't matter if it's rain and snow and sunny. Every day the dog needs to be exercised. And it's like, I had someone say to me recently, like, well, we just can't commit to that. And I say, well, you bought the fucking dog, so, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
You have the
What do we
dog,
do from
like,
here?
yeah.
Like, yeah, it's
Mm.
your dog now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hyper bonded with you.
Mm.
And as well, what I get really pissed off with is people don't understand what happens when you get a dog. This is something I was really, really,
Okay.
like, not depressed during the second half of lockdown, but I knew what was going to happen. Was that when people went back to work, all these dogs were going to be chucked into shelters. And like, I help out in a shelter, and when you'll find this interesting from the psychology point of it, when
Mm.
you buy a puppy, or you adopt a puppy, that puppy, like, hyper bonds with you. You are essentially their parent, and it doesn't matter how long time goes. When that dog sees you, its brain releases endorphins and love hormones, and, like, you can abuse a dog, neglect it, throw it away, come back in 8 years' time. The same response will happen if you were around that dog when it was a puppy. So they are almost like meant, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Neurologically, they are part of our family. Like, they really, really are. They look to us the way we would look at a loved one, and in your own family, the
Mm.
brain response is there. And it breaks my heart to think that there's so many dogs in shelters and pounds up and down the country that, you know the dog became an inconvenience, and they were tossed away like an old couch. And this is a living sentient being that has its brain has bonded to your family and your core group, and you just wanted it as a novel idea during COVID, and you didn't actually think everything through. And to me, it shows how really selfish some people are, and quick to just fuck it out the door because it doesn't suit. Like, and it's sad. It really is. It's almost like a commentary on society, like, or not society, but some
Consumerism or
people
something.
yeah, man. It's like this is a sentient creature, like, that loves you with every single part of its DNA, and it didn't suit anymore. So fuck off, like. And I as an empathic person who loves animals, I cannot wrap my head around it, and yeah, it makes me very upset, man. To and that's the situation, and the government do fuck all. The government this year gave the greyhound industry 2 million quid. They didn't give any shelters. Fuck all, like. So
Yeah.
it's a sad state of affairs, man. And I don't know if your viewers have seen it or want to see it. I'd strongly recommend not watching it. It is hard to watch. The RTE did an expose on the greyhound industry about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, and it's the stuff that goes on in this country with greyhounds is beyond harrowing. Like, it's American Horror Story stuff. Like, there's really, really evil things happen in the greyhound industry in Ireland, and I don't. And nobody should support greyhound racing in Ireland. It is beyond barbaric. Like,
Yeah, as in the dogs when they get out the other side, that they're just essentially chucking
they
them,
get out.
or there's
And it was
no.
worse than chucking
Yeah.
them. Sometimes they get put in a boat to China for meat. Like,
Mm,
they go live in a meat farm, like, and
fuck.
there's like I don't even want to go into it too much because it'll just make us depressed. We'll both start crying.
Yeah,
If
I can
people
feel
want
it.
to see, if people want to see how messed up it is, check out the RTE documentary and have the tissues at the ready, because it is a serious tearjerker. It's really, really hard to watch. And but the knee-jerk reaction of the government to what, on one aspect, support a dying trade. I mean, there's so many booming industries and entrepreneurs that in this country could do with a hand and a dig out. But no, they prop up a dying industry that abuses animals and pat themselves on the back over it. And I think it's absolutely disgusting, and it's quite shameful that we as a nation kind of didn't really bat an eyelid about it, or seem to care. Like,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
If you send me the link, Rob, I'll include it for people in the description if they want to watch it, because it sounds like
I
something
think
that's
that BBC
definitely
one I was
worth
talking
paying
about
attention to.
is on YouTube as well. But actually, if we can go back to what you said about
Yeah.
the dogs and what we have done to dogs,
Mhm.
like, I'd like to talk about the bulldog for just like 2 minutes. And
Yep.
like 200 years ago, a bulldog skull had a normal dog cranium shape. You know what I mean? It had an elongated nose and it had a skull cap that was a circle. Now they're over. Literally, there's a not a graph, but a kind of slideshow on this pedigree dogs exposed, and it just does like flash every kind of 20 years, and in that 200-year space of time, the bulldog's nose just goes inside of its own head, and the scientific name for that type of face is called brachiocephalic, or brachio in short. And that is the biggest problem with dogs at the moment. Is that we have created dogs that literally cannot breathe.
Mm.
I think that's the most messed up thing that humans have done with dogs, to dogs, in kind of recent history. We create things that cannot survive. Like, I mean, nearly,
That's so
it'd
interesting,
be
man.
very
But fucked up. But
so fucked up, man. And so there's a lot of brachio dogs, like, and these are all the dogs that when you see me or someone like me, when the temperature hits, 25 degrees, and I'm saying don't walk your dogs, I'm really talking about the brachio dogs, because if you take a boxer out in heat, a bulldog, a pug, um, a Shitzu, any squashed face dog, they can literally just drop dead on the side of the road. It
Fuck.
takes very, very little for a brachio dog to get heat stroke, because they don't have airways. And a common surgery that vets do nowadays is trachea widening or nose drilling. And just the
Fuck.
fact that it's a sorry state of affairs, like, and
Mm.
this is where we're at. And as well, like, if you meet Frenchies or bulldogs, you see how funny they are, and they really have personalities. But I could never own one, just because of the fear I would have constant. Like, I kind of worry anyway. I'm a bit of a catastrophizer, and I would lose my mind if I have to think that my dog might just drop dead because it's too hot. Like,
Spontaneously.
um,
Yeah, fuck. Mm.
it's a terrifying thought to have, like, and it happens.
It's a
Like,
really,
every
yeah.
summer, dogs come into the
Mm.
vet with heat stroke, like.
Yeah, and have expired. It's a weird thing, like, because breeding, if you're thinking about like the aim that they're breeding the dogs with, is probably for aesthetics, or is it for a particular, or it was for aesthetics, and now it's just become kind
Oh
of
man,
deformed down the line. Because we're kind of doing the same thing with
and
people. I mean,
it's people say that it's for aesthetics, right?
mm,
If you want to take bulldogs for example,
okay,
um, bulldogs, like, if you go onto Instagram now and you start spamming hashtags in, very quickly you'll find a breeder. And a lot of the time, you look at the words that they're using, it'll be like, tricolor this or blue that. These aren't like dogs, like pedigree dogs that you're selling. What you're selling is your marketing, like this is a marketing
mm,
scam. Like, there's no such thing as
yeah,
a
it's a
tricolor
tool.
bulldog. There's no such thing as a
Mm,
tricolor bulldog. And these people, I'm gonna get shit for saying this, but I don't give a bollocks, man. Come for me.
do
Like,
it.
it's it's complete fucking marketing and money. It's greed, man.
Mm,
Greed, greed, greed,
it's
greed,
great.
greed. We don't need to
Mm,
make any more dogs. Like, this is the sad reality in Ireland, is we have too many dogs anyway. But breeders don't
very
stop
interesting
breeding.
point.
Breeders don't
It's a money
stop,
game,
like,
really,
they
isn't it?
keep going. It's a complete money game, man. This is a business.
Mm,
And the
okay.
statistics just came out. Irish, um, we spend some of the most money on dogs in the world, more so than Americans, like, which I found insane. So and like, goes
Really.
back to what you said earlier, like, we really do love our dogs, and they are part
Mm,
of our family now. And like me and my partner, we've been together 10 years, like, and like, I'm sure we might have kids one day, but for the next couple of years, like, it's just dogs, like, they're
could be
our
the
babies,
dogs.
like.
Yeah. Yeah, and on that topic, I mean, for people that do love their dogs, and I know loads of people listening do, like, how can we create the ideal environment for the dogs? You know what I mean? I know there's obviously like routine stuff, but what do you think is the best
Routine,
way for people
routine,
to do it?
routine is Dogs
Mm,
love routine. They love routines. Like, my staffy he's gonna be 10 in a couple of weeks, and like, by God, if I start waking up at a different time, or start walking him at a different time, or not feeding him at the usual time, like, he can see that he's out of sorts. Like, they
yeah.
thrive on routine, and this is the most important thing I could say to people when they're training a puppy, is that, like, you set your timers, and I swear to God, the dog will start telling you 1 or 2 minutes before the timer goes off, are we about to go for a walk? Are we about to go outside to go to the toilet? And
Mm,
another, that's a quick tip for people that have puppies that are currently toilet training, is do 40-minute intervals, and just bring outside, and try and attach a word to the desired effect. Um,
mhm.
if 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 it's going to take a wee, the best thing that you could do, or the easiest thing you can do, is to piss in the garden yourself, and the dog will
No
copy
way.
you.
I wish I had
And
known that,
yeah,
but
I know it sounds ridiculous, and I'm sure some dog
yeah,
trainer will slag me over it, but I don't care. It works, like, and the proof is
yeah.
in the pudding. Like, and if you've got an expensive home, which all of us do in Ireland at the moment, you don't want piss puddles. You don't want your floorboards warping.
Yep, for real. So routine and building up to them walks, depending on the breed, I suppose you have to have different kind of, some need more, some need less, but
exactly.
they all need walks.
Exactly. And as well, it can be kind of strange as well. If you have a giant breed, it's like you've got to be so careful. Like, you have a Great Dane or a Mastiff. If you do too much exercise when that dog is young, and the dog will want to exercise because they're puppies and they're crazy, that dog, like, if you allowed a Great Dane to run around like a big silly puppy, that will be a dog that will be crippled with arthritis as it's older. So if you've got a giant breed or a really heavy breed, you've got to be very careful with how much exercise they get while they're young, because you could actually be creating, a lot of headaches down the line. But yeah, no, it's routine, man. One thing that people make a mistake of doing is only doing physical exercise with the dog. Mental stimulation is as important. So if people want to Google mental enrichment games, that's the term for it.
Okay.
And these are things like little kind of puzzles for your dog. A really easy one to do is to take a handful of dog food and just throw it through your grass, and then it becomes a sniffing game for the dog. The dog has to then sniff it out and find it. And as well, sometimes people are obsessed with walking quickly, and they think you need to run the legs off the dog and do a giant lap of your area. But actually, studies have shown that if you do a slower paced walk and let the dog sniff more, it gets much more mental stimulation from that walk. So we'll be much more tired for it. But yeah, I think a lot of people, more and more people, I think, now are realizing that the mental stimulation is as important as the physical. Whereas back in the day, people wouldn't have really done any mental stimulation with their dog.
That's
It would have
something I never would have thought of. I don't think I ever would have thought of that, man. But it makes sense, like, and if it tires them out as well, and it obviously is a bit more meaningful.
Look, on a day like today when it's raining sideways, and like you just want to do a quick lap of the block, come home. There's these brilliant devices called snuffle mats or Kong wobblers, and it's basically this thing where you throw loads of dog food into it, and it stands on itself, and the dog has to figure out that he has to hit it, and one treat will fall out at a time. There's things like that. There's another thing called a snuffle mat where it looks like a mop head upside down, and you sprinkle food into it, rub it around, and then the dog has to, it's like a little puzzle, has to go in and find in between each strands where it is. And there's loads of things, and a lot of them are free as well. So if people want to Google mental enrichment games, on a rainy day, it's a game changer.
Yeah, man, that sounds like a real way of kind of getting them that extra kind of bit of work for them and something to do without having to
and
go
a lot
do
of
50
dogs
million
want
laps.
to work as well. Dogs love to work.
Yeah.
Like if you have a German breed in particular, the German dogs, they thrive on it. So I really, really recommend you do, like, and tug as well. People, if anyone can take this home from this conversation, I would be so happy. Playing tug of war with your dog does not make it aggressive. That needs to go in the bin, okay?
That's bullshit.
Being an
Doggy
idiot
myths.
with your dog, being an idiot with your dog will make it aggressive, okay? But tug of war is one of the most powerful tools that you can use with your dog. The problem is that people sometimes let tug of war get a bit too aroused, and maybe a bit of growling gets involved, and like tug of war, really what it is it's an obedience drill. It's you put them in a sit, you put them in a stay, you hold out the tug, you release them, they get it, you have a little tug, you let go, let them wander off, you call them back, you start again. Or you can. There's so much you can do with tug, and it is a really really powerful tool. And sometimes people don't actually find what I call the motivating tool. And in my experience, dogs are they have two mindsets. They're either a food dog or they're a play dog. And play dog meaning your main source of motivation for the training will be a toy, it'll be a tennis ball, it'll be a tug of war game, it'll be a stick. Whereas if they're food, when they're learning a new behavior, you'll be using meat or cheese or something really strong smelling. And as time goes on, you'll use kibble or something that basically doesn't make them fat. And guide dogs are trained with carrots because otherwise they'd be morbidly obese. Like.
They get
So,
so clever.
so
Oh,
yeah, but also like find like anyone who's listening, put your dog in front of you, put it in a sit, put it in a stay, put a tennis ball down and put a sausage down, and see what it goes for. Like if it goes for the food, you've got a dog that's food driven. If you've got a dog that goes for the tennis ball, and the tennis ball might be too low, maybe a squeaky chicken or like those little pig toys or something like that. But like I have a couple of dogs and they're all different. Like two of them are food driven and two of them are play driven. One of them is so food driven that he loses his mind and cannot focus. So I have to use play because he cannot focus on the moment because he just wants that food, and he's literally like a crackhead when he sees that food come out, like, and he loses all logical thinking. So it actually
he can't reason anymore.
He's insane. Like this is a dog that he's 0 to 100. He's a sleepy lump in the house, but if you leave the house with him, he's doing backflips off walls. Like that's the Staffy, Frankie. Nice. You might have met Frankie down the pub one of the days, but he's a proper little alpha now. When you take him out of the Jeep up the mountains, like he's like, let's go, and just absolutely sends it up the mountain. And people can't believe he's as old as he is. And Staffies are one of those breeds I was talking about earlier that they will just go and go and go and go and go and go and go. And I find as well, there's two types of Staffies. There's couch potato Staffies and there's ADD Staffies. And later you could have a complete 50-50 split. So like be careful if you're thinking about getting a Staffy. Not because they're bad dogs. They're one of the best dogs in the world. But they have boundless energy, and like the first 2 years that we had Frankie, like, and he was the third dog I'd owned myself, and a different machine altogether than my other two dogs. Like,
there's something you're talking about there.
They've some.
Which is like dog self-control almost. Sorry, I wanted to jump on that before it went past because I thought it's so important for thinking about like how do you teach a dog essentially to, like, say you have a dog that's impulse like barking control at people too much, impulse control, like it gets too excited, it starts barking. How would you start to address that problem? Like how do you build that in them?
So that's kind of two questions, right?
Okay.
The barking thing. Brain for the barking thing is I kind of split, all right? So how I stop dogs to bark is I will attach a verbal command to the actual bark itself, because all dogs know the word no. Generally, if a dog is over 1 year old, they've been told no an awful lot, and they know that okay, they're probably not supposed to be doing this. So sometimes one of the problems that people get with dogs is they talk to the dog as if the dog can understand what they're talking about. If you attach a verbal command to the behavior, he knows what that behavior is. So then if you attach no speak, the dog will go, oh shit, he doesn't want me to bark at this man. So that's how you stop that actual behavior. But impulse
Mhm.
control is a whole different ballgame. And impulse
Okay.
control has to be done gradually, and you
Mhm.
work up towards.
Mm.
So I'll give you like a really high intense impulse control situation. You're taking a Christmas turkey out of the oven. It falls on the ground. The smell hits the dog. It sees it. Most
Mm.
dogs that haven't been very well trained will just eat that turkey right up. But
Yeah.
if there is a dog that has been gone through enough impulse control staining, you catch him, you look at him, you say, "Hey, Billy, sit down, stay." You know, the years of training come to the top of its mind, and it's able to
Okay.
handle the stimulus that's in front of it. And a lot of the
Mm.
time, people might do stays in the house, in the gardens. But the most where most people not fail, but they don't continue the training by implementing what's called the 3Ds. And this is like the most important thing with dog training, right? So
Mm.
most people get to what I call the base level. And the base level would be when I'm standing on top of the dog, like I tell it to sit, it sits. When I tell it to stay, it stays. If I'm 10 feet back from the dog, and I give the dog the commands, will he listen to me? If the radio is blaring out Icelandic death metal, will the dog listen to me? So
Yeah.
the three
Mm.
Ds are distance, duration, and distraction. So most people get to the base level, but then they fall shy. And they your average person thinks that when the dog knows the behaviors, that's it. We're done.
That's
Job
it
over.
done.
But no,
Yeah.
that's only the start of it. When well, like I can
Okay.
teach honestly, I can teach a puppy all the basic commands in an hour. But that's not even the start of the work. The real work is the 3Ds. So by increasing the distance, that's how far away the command has a hold over the dog, or the dog will listen. The duration, how long will it stay in the behavior before it decides, fuck this, I'm out. And the distraction is, focus. How long can your dog stay focused with what stimulus going on all around it, like? So
Mm.
so yeah, if people don't do enough stay and wait games with food, then when like the scenario we explained, the kitchen turkey falling out of the oven, that
Yep.
all training goes out the window because they haven't put the work in. So
Mm.
like getting a puppy is no it's not a walk in the park. Like it's full on. You can guarantee you're giving a year of your life away. Like, and if you've got a new house, a new job, or a young kid, do not get a puppy because you'll have a mental breakdown. And you
Yeah.
won't enjoy yourself. A dog is supposed to improve your life, and
Mm.
I feel some people are very naive when they get a dog, and they don't really. And a lot of the time, I come over to people, and unfortunately, I have to be, the bearer of bad news because I've seen it all in 12 years. I swear to God, I've pretty much seen everything that can be seen at this stage. And there's been a couple of times where I've just had to say, guys, I'm sorry to say it, this is not the dog for you. It's you're like the other client I talked about how, they said we're just not really willing to put that in, and I said, well, you know, this is what
That's
the
it.
dog
Like,
needs, like.
yeah.
Yeah, literally,
Fuck,
like,
man.
and it's like
Mm.
your car at the petrol station. It's like this car needs diesel. You put it in, like, and
Yep. Or it
it
doesn't work.
it won't work. It won't work otherwise, like. So
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah. It
this is
makes
the
you think about
problem is
young
that
dogs as
people.
well. Mm. That, like, if you get them young and you mess up, then you're gonna have all these other problems down the line. Like,
Well,
it's almost, you wonder why.
the
Mm.
main thing I do in the shelter is fix these traumatized dogs that unfortunately some person either intentionally or unintentionally, you know, destroyed and traumatized by. But yeah, it's
Mm.
It's a weird world, man. The doggy world. It's a strange one, like. But
Yeah, it seems to overlap with all this kind of consumerism, impulsivity, people just wanting things because they look shiny,
and
not
also,
taking
I don't know.
responsibility for them.
Blind Boy said something really funny a couple of weeks ago, and it was
Mm.
like dogs don't exist. Like there's no scientific name for a dog. Like a dog is a Canis lupus, which is a wolf. So like
Mm.
scientifically speaking, dogs don't exist. Like
Yeah.
we made them. They're not natural. We literally made them. And I think all of us should step up a little bit and try and help the situation that we created. Like I mean
Yeah,
they
man.
were bred
Mm.
by us. They're made by us for us, and like we just kind of don't really care about them that much. Like
And it seems like there's a lot of lessons there as well, man. I always remember from like having dogs when I was younger and stuff. Like, obviously, I wasn't the sole caretaker, but you learn things from
yeah,
them, and you learn a certain amount of
oh
responsibility.
man,
You learn care. You learn what it's like to have
yeah.
a person that's non-judgmental, that just loves you, who you have to take care
Yeah,
of. I mean, you get a lot
there's
from that
also there's
relationship.
you do, man, but there's also something else. I gotta sound
Mm.
like a complete tinfoil hat wearer now, but like there's
Mm.
something unconscious going on. There's a connection there. Like I can tell my dogs to go outside with my eyes. Like they're so finely tuned into us. It's insane.
Mm.
Like I do not to say that there's a secret sixth sense that nobody's figured out yet, but like there's something else going on. Like there's some form of connection, whether it's them being just very tuned into our physical tells, yourself.
Mm.
Like if you're pissed off, your shoulders are more up, and if you're happy,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
relaxed. Like either they're more tuned into that kind of stuff, or there is something unspoken that I don't know
Mm.
what it is. But that's my tinfoil hat piece for the day.
Yeah, man, some sort of extra kind of, I don't know, psychological connect. But you could, I mean, yeah, if they're so dialed into, do you find that that's a transferable skill set? Do you find that with people or with have you found other areas that have improved because of your training of dogs?
Not really. One thing for sure. I'm very much in the present moment now. Uh,
Okay.
before I was the Dogfather,
Mm.
I used to fucking worry. I was a proper catastrophe. I'd be freaking out about things that were so far fetched and unrealistic. In my head, it somehow made sense. And
Mm.
I think just from being around so many dogs and seeing how they are, I now am much more present in the moment because that's all that dogs are. Dogs aren't,
Yeah.
they physically
Mm.
can't think about what's coming, and
Yeah.
they don't really think about the past either. Like they're now, they are the embodiment of now, and that's
Nice.
that's been the biggest impact that I think they've had on me in a positive one. And negatively,
Mm.
I'm always hoovering. I'm never not hoovering the cat.
Yeah,
So
his hair is all over
that's the bad.
absolutely
That's the bad thing. I'm
everything.
just a hairy
Um,
fucker. Like my car, my house, my clothes, and my uniform for work
just
is black. Like so, I didn't
just
choose well
endless
with the
hair.
color scheme. Yeah,
And
literally.
did you, for the
And my
worrying,
husky.
did you have to? Oh, sorry to cut across. Did you have to do that to communicate with them? Because, like, I know if you're worrying, does that worry the dogs more? Like, does that impact? Like, you think about. I know I've heard stuff of people
Um,
with
they can
animals
definitely
that
kind of they
they
can
pick it
definitely
up.
sense. They can sense if you're stressed or if you're
Mm,
really upset. Like
yeah.
when Bruce passed away, um, all of my clients, dogs, and my own dogs, like they were they could sense that I was really, 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 really hurt. Like, and
Mm,
the probably um the thing that comes to mind the most would be Charlie, who is one of my golden girls. This one of the sweetest dogs you'll ever meet. Just a heart of gold, and I hadn't even told this. So when Bruce died, the business had just kind of started to take off, and everything was go go go. I didn't take any time off for myself, which I should have, because I wasn't in a good place. Like I was really messed up. Like, and well, maybe in hindsight, it was good to keep working. Maybe the last thing I should have done was to lie around at home. Like, but I came in to get Charlie, and she just came. And Charlie is a messer. She usually runs and grabs something, and then we play chasing around the house, like, and she winds me up, like, and I'm like, "Come on, we gotta go." But this day she just came. She walked straight over to me and just put her head onto my lap and was almost like praying at me, which is something that she would never do. And yeah, I just just hugged her for 1 or 2 seconds, and I was just like, wow, I really needed that. Like, thank you. And
Yep.
so yeah, I do. They can definitely they can sense shit, like, they can for sure.
Yeah, and they're not worried about social mores or about looking silly or anything, so they'll give you that affection with no question. Like, it's there's a purity to it that's just heart wrenching, really. Yeah, it's beautiful.
They really are the best.
Yeah. And hopefully people take better care of them, man. I know this conversation has certainly made me think more. I mean, I don't have a dog, but the
maybe I can get you one now. I'll twist your arm and get you to adopt a nice senior dog.
Yeah, get me one of those Shitzus, man. I got a couple of those foot warmers on the go. I'd always wondered the purpose of a Shih Tzu. Yeah, that's kind of be good for the podcast.
Yeah, well, man. So we could do a monthly segment where I give you a breed of the month.
Yep. A breed, and I'll test them out and see how we go.
I don't know. I'll just give you a random fact. I've so many in my little pocketbook.
Man, I 100%. You should be posting these on the internet. Like, these are fucking.
I know, man.
Mind blowing facts. Like,
my problem is I have too many ideas, and I tire myself out with them all, and then just eat dinner and fall asleep on the couch.
Yeah,
so
you've also got a pack of dogs, which is probably time consuming.
And I've done 20k up a mountain, so there's that as well. Like.
Yeah, that'll do it. Where's the best place for people to find you and to avail of your services? I'm sure there are so many people in need of them.
Yeah, for sure.
You're probably already booked up, but
the walks and the overnights books are pretty much closed, because the spaces are limited, unfortunately. In the future, I will have a bigger premises, and I'll be able to take much more dogs in. But for the moment, I can only really do training for the general public, and the best place to get me would be on Instagram at the Irish Dogfather, or my website is theIrishDogfather.ie, or sorry, thedogfather.ie. I don't even know my own website.
The Dogfather, sweet.
Yeah, that's it. And we'll have merch drops and calendars coming soon. So
very nice.
So yeah. It's all on the up.
Yeah, man, it looks good. It's the right industry to be in, and your passion for it is infectious, man. I can really feel how much you love the dogs and how much this is like the thing, man. It's beautiful.
I really
appreciate
it. This, like, no worries, man.
Yeah, man, that's powerful. Well, thanks for your time, Rob, and I'll put all the stuff in the description for people listening.
Yeah,
to find stuff.
Sweet.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you. All right.
Oh.